From underground no-rules brawls to packed arenas and global pay-per-view dominance, the UFC has transformed into one of the most electrifying sports on the planet. But how did this once controversial spectacle evolve into a multi-billion-dollar industry? Stay tuned as we take you through the explosive rise of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, from its humble beginnings to becoming the most watched combat sport in the world. The early days? A brutal beginning. The UFC was founded in 1993, and its first event was unlike anything the world had ever seen. With very few rules, no weight classes, and a no-holds-barred approach, the UFC promised to answer the age-old question, who is the toughest fighter on the planet? The event featured martial artists from various disciplines, karate, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and boxing, pitted against each other in a tournament format. These early fights were raw and violent, which led to the UFC gaining a reputation for being too extreme, almost underground. But despite the controversy, there was something undeniably captivating about it. Fans couldn't look away. Dana White and the Fertitta brothers, the game changers. By the early 2000s, the UFC was struggling financially and on the brink of collapse. Enter Dana White and the Fertitta brothers, who bought the UFC for $2 million in 2001. What seemed like a risky move at the time turned out to be one of the most profitable decisions in sports history. Under Dana White's leadership, the UFC was transformed from a fringe spectacle into a legitimate sport. They introduced stricter rules, weight classes, and regulations to make the fights safer and more palatable to mainstream audiences. The UFC was rebranded, and with Dana White's vision, it slowly started its rise to becoming a global sports empire. Before we dive into the UFC's global explosion, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth stories on your favorite sports and athletes. Like the video, and let us know in the comments who your favorite UFC fighter is. Let's get back into the octagon. The Ultimate Fighter. Breaking into the mainstream. One of the turning points for the UFC was the launch of the reality show The Ultimate Fighter in 2005. The show, which aired on Spike TV, brought UFC fighters and their personalities into people's living rooms. It didn't just focus on fights, it showed the grit, sacrifice, and emotional roller coaster of becoming a UFC fighter. This move was a marketing masterstroke. The show's finale, which featured Forrest Griffin and Stefan Bonnar in a legendary fight, put the UFC on the map. Millions watched, and the sport gained mainstream legitimacy almost overnight. From there, the UFC skyrocketed in popularity, attracting sponsorships and fans from around the world. Global expansion. From Las Vegas to the world. With its growing popularity in the US, the UFC set its sights on conquering international markets. The organization began hosting events all over the world, Canada, Brazil, Europe, and Asia, bringing the sport of mixed martial arts, MMA, to millions of new fans. UFC stars like Georges St-Pierre, Anderson Silva, and Conor McGregor helped elevate the sport's profile globally. These fighters became household names, and their iconic fights brought in record-breaking pay-per-view numbers. The UFC wasn't just an American phenomenon anymore. It was a global brand. With its fighters hailing from different countries and cultures, the UFC became a symbol of how combat sports could unite people from all walks of life. The mega deals, UFC becomes a billion-dollar empire. In 2016, the UFC was sold for an astounding $4 billion to WME-IMG, a Hollywood talent agency, making it the largest sale in sports history at the time. This deal solidified the UFC's status as a major player in the sports world. The organization inked broadcasting deals with ESPN, expanded its reach through social media and streaming platforms, and continued to host massive events like UFC 229, which saw Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov face off in one of the most watched UFC fights ever. Today, the UFC is not just about the fights. It's an entertainment juggernaut, attracting celebrities, top athletes, and millions of fans from all corners of the globe. The UFC's rise from a struggling niche event to a global sports empire is nothing short of extraordinary. If you're a fan of UFC's wild journey or just love combat sports, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more stories about the fighters and events that shaped the world of MMA. Drop a comment with your favorite UFC fight of all time, and we'll see you in the next video.